So after the playing career, you moved into coaching. Was that always something you thought you were going to go down, or was it like a sort of particular turning point?
No, it was something I wanted to do. I did my prelims when I was at Manchester City towards the end of my career, because it was something I knew I had to do and wanted to do. And then obviously when I finished playing, had the opportunity to coach with the England youth teams for the FA. So I was gaining some coaching experience, working with obviously the talented players at each year group. So that gave me an insight into the coaching, and that worked nicely with the media work that I was doing at Sky. So I was sort of running the coaching along parallel with my media work. And then the opportunity, which was a no-brainer, I couldn't say no.
So Glenn Hoddle was sacked, and then is it David Pleat was
Yeah, I always kept in touch with David. He's incredible knowledge of the game and love of the game. And he said to me, he knew that I was coaching, and he said to me what were my plans, because we crossed over with media as well. And he said there might well be an opportunity to come back to the club. Would you like to see how it works? And I did. And from day one, walking into the training ground, that day-to-day involvement with the players, and it was the young players at the time, as a development type position, and I just loved it and thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it while I was here. And
you mentioned that you learnt some different methods when you were in Bordeaux, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, the year I had in Bordeaux was an amazing insight into, I would say, more of what we've been accustomed to now. The diet, the training regimes, the way that it all works, and I experienced that firsthand playing for Ami Jacquet, who obviously took France to win the World Cup. Jean Tigana was captain. There was a gentleman by the name of Cantona who come and played with us as well for a few months at the end of my time.
What was he like as a person to hang around with?
He was a maverick. He was an amazing...
Did he talk about seagulls?
He talks about everything, but he loved the game. He was an extraordinary talent. He was very young at that time.
Sure.
That was quite something, having 3 months playing with Cantona at Bordeaux as well. But so all those things, I think, certainly helped me. That experience helped me. When I then was coaching and bringing that to my coaching.
So in terms of the sort of the Tottenham hierarchy at the time, we had Frank Arneson come in, and Martin Nolh was a coach at the time with Jacques Santini. How were they like to work alongside, and what role were you specifically doing within that sort of setup?
Well, because it was obviously very early days, Jacques came in with Dominic Coupoli, who was his fitness guy. Martin Nolh arrived as a coach as well. I was in the mix because obviously David had given me the opportunity to come into the club. Frank was obviously actually organising the whole of the coaching setup. Jacques didn't particularly last too long.
No.
There was whatever it was happened with the chairman and the way that it unfolded. But that obviously left it for Frank then to appoint Martin as head coach, which then brought Chrissy Houghton back into the coaching fold.
Did you know Houghton before?
Yeah, I played with Chris here. We played in the same team. Chrissy was obviously, at the time I arrived, he was actually scouting for the club rather than coaching.
Right.
But then Martin brought him in as a coach. He assisted Martin, and Martin then wanted me to sort of bridge the gap between the academy and the first team as what was described as development coach, and then working with Martin and Chris, started to work with the first team, but had that development group as well. So I was getting a really good education as to the younger players coming through that intermediate group, and then working with the first team as well. So it was a fabulous experience.
You spoke about scouting there, so you almost did a little bit of scouting yourself through Ollie, who was at West Ham, who gave you a little bit of recommendation to Michael Carrick.
Yeah, that was fascinating because Frank had been looking at Michael. The club had been tracking Michael Carrick while at West Ham. My son was in the academy at West Ham at that time. The reports coming back weren't that great through Frank's scouts, but then Michael wasn't playing very often. He was injured most of the season that we were watching him. Frank just asked me, he said, I believe your son's at West Ham, can we find out about Michael? and we obviously then found out about his injury and why he'd not been perhaps as playing as much or as well as we knew he could. But the proposed transfer and the price was at such a level that it was it was a no-brainer. And I'd seen Michael play a lot in the youth team. Again, going back to the family, one of my cousin's sons actually played in the youth team at West Ham with Michael Carrick, with Jermaine Defoe and Joe Cole, that won the FA Youth Cup. And we knew I knew, and the family knew, of the quality of Michael Carrick. So Frank said, "Should we take a chance on him?" And it was an absolute yes.
He was an absolute star.
Steal.
He was
a steal.
He was a steal. I mean, 100%. But he was like one of the first players that I saw who I really thought you could just tell he had always had time on the ball, 2-footed. Because I didn't get to see much of Huddle play, and I think it was maybe similar. But like when I saw him play, I was just always like, yeah, he's absolute class. You knew, and I think it's like when Ericsson back in the day when he had some form. When he was on the ball, then Kane and Ali and Son, they all make runs off him because you know the ball's going to come to you. And I think that was the same. You could tell that when Carrick was on the ball, you had Berbatov or Keane or whoever it was making those
Michael
runs.
had a great awareness of what was going on all
really
around
spread
him.
it, yeah.
Unfortunately, he arrived. He got injured playing for me in a reserve team game, the very first game.
Oh no.
But then took a while. It was about 6 weeks, if I remember rightly, before he got fit. But as soon as he got fit and played one more game for the reserve team, Martin saw him and bang, he was in, and obviously the rest is history. He became an £18 million player.
Yeah, I know, he's incredible. You spoke about Martin. What was Martin Nolh like to play under? Because obviously we all love him, don't we?
Absolutely,
he was a real character.
Yeah, he was a character, but he had I always say he had an unbelievable understanding of the English game. He obviously played in England, at Coventry, at West Brom, and he knew what was required, but he brought that little bit of, if you want to call it, Dutch flair, a Dutch philosophy. But he understood English football, and I thought that was his greatest strength. He was good to work for, and I think the team and the club certainly moved forward under Martin Nolh. And
then Arneson left, obviously got poached. Took him across West London to Chelsea, and Comolli came in. Were you happy about that, or did you enjoy your time working with him?
Yeah.
Or did you have much interaction with him?
Yes, worked with Damien. Obviously, he then was recruiting, trying to find the young talent and talent that needed to go into the first team. So it was an interesting time working with Damien. I would say it was a slightly different philosophy in terms of the way the club was going to be run, how transfers were going to take place. But again, it was a great learning curve for me.
And then, which brings us on to Lasagna Gate. So you actually were ill beforehand, before this all kicked off. When I was reading it, I was like, hang on a minute, were you the person that actually started it all?
No, I wasn't, because that question was asked. Obviously.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to think that you were out of the occasion, you had left.
I just had a flu, which obviously in and around the players as a coach, immediately, you know, they detach you from the group, which is exactly what happened. So,
how close was it to getting called off? Was it ever going to potentially happen? Because that was
I
just
think
like,
the phone calls were
I remember
made.
going to that game and I was like, we were so excited because we thought we could do it, and
I don't think it was ever going to be called off.
No,
we had to fulfil the fixture. The question was asked.
Yeah,
but no, it didn't happen, and
that was
it was a disaster, because obviously the whole season. And you hate to say that the whole season comes down to one game and one result.
Yeah, and the fact it was so the flipping scum that overtook us as well. It was
such a blow, a massive blow.
Yeah, and it just felt so undeserved as well. And that was the thing,
yeah.
and especially at West Ham.
Yeah,
I just remember them like literally just they weren't even watching the game. They were just shouting Champions League, having a laugh, like literally just looking. They did not even watch the game, coating us. It was horrible.
It was, yeah. Best forgotten.
So sadly, Martin Nolh was sacked. It was a weird sacking, because it seemed to come in the middle of the game almost, because there was a lot of press almost around kickoff and a little bit just before, and then there was a rumour started that he was sacked, and then at half time I think it everyone just seemed to know about it, didn't it? What did you know from your side?
I was sitting in the stand watching that game, and you could sense there was this rumour going round, without actually knowing exactly why. But half time, again with social media, everybody seemed to know that Martin was leaving, it was quite incredible. I've never experienced anything like that in terms of a manager leaving or manager's position being changed. So it was a crazy night, that was.
So after Martin Nolh's departure, you were given control of the Blackburn game. How was that? You're having Spurs. That's like all of our dreams come true.
Absolutely.
In one day.
It was, because obviously, having been there as a coach and working with a group, seeing how they worked, just to be given that responsibility was.
Did you change many things from what he did?
Not really, no. Because I don't.
They didn't have an Allen style.
No, you can't influence the team that dramatically.
Yeah.
It takes a period of time. It takes a lot of work. But the players were fantastic.
Yep.
They responded as players do and should. They're professional athletes. They have to do that. Obviously, it was surprise after what happened midweek with Martin leaving.
Of course.
And then the worst thing of all that could happen was beaten with the last kick of the game. The centre half comes up and smashes an incredible goal in, and I tell you, that was really upsetting. It was something all throughout my career I wanted to win every game as a player, as a coach, but to be in charge of Spurs and lose my first game.
Oh dear.
Dreadful.
Oh dear. In that team, was there a young man called Dimitar Berbatov?
There was incredible talent.
I absolutely loved him play. He was almost like that character, one of those sort of early players that I was just amazed by. It was like he had Velcro boots. Like any ball could be so high and he would just pull it down. It just literally like incredible skill, technical ability.
Wonderful touch, amazing awareness of what was going on around him as well. Sometimes a little bit languid, that it looked like he really wasn't trying. But Dimitar was a scholar of the game. He knew the history of the club, and I thoroughly enjoyed working with him. He was one of the best players I've worked with as a coach, and as a character, he was a complex character, but he was a genius as a footballer.
There is a good story in the book regarding him, which I will leave to the readers of the book. I don't want to give everything away, but it is very good. So one day Ramos did arrive, and we did manage to win a trophy under him. And then Harry Redknapp. How much of Harry Redknapp did you know of before he came, or were the families intertwined? Or?
Definitely, yeah. My father had taught Harry when he was a schoolboy in the East End of London, many years before. Harry had always remembered that. My dad and my uncle used to go to his school, and when they were doing their coaching, their early days of coaching, teaching him as a schoolboy footballer at the school he was at, Harry always remembered that. And then I played for Harry. He was coach at West Ham when I was at the latter end of my career. He was Billy Bond's assistant, and then manager of the club. And then obviously Harry arrives, and knowing him and having the relationship that we had, basically he just said to me, "Clive, what the going on?" Because we had 2 points after 8 games.
Yeah, and it wasn't a great situation to be in.
And we had a great squad of players. And what Harry did, he just lifted the veil. I think that the team was under a lot of pressure. One day Ramos had a philosophy that it was his way or no way. And the players, I describe it, the players were playing scared. They were scared that if they made a mistake, they were out. If they were scared that the manager said they were out, they knew they were out, because there was no way back under one day.
Yeah.
Harry was the complete opposite, and Harry did what he did best. He dealt with the players, he took off all those shackles, and the team played.
Yeah.
The team started to play, and we had good players. We had a Berbatov, we had a Modric. We had players.
You did experience a bit of an issue with a lack of technology, as it were, up at Old Trafford, because you were involved in the team with the Pedro Mendes goal, as it were. How frustrating was that with you? I suppose you already experienced it with your stanchion goal back in the day. But was that another one of you just like, oh, what the F again? Like, how can this be happening?
The thing was, there was a monitor in the technical area, and at Old Trafford, as you know, you sit up a little bit higher. Pedro's shot goes in, goalkeeper spills it, goes a yard over the line. We jump up, we run down. Mark Housey was the fourth official, and I remember we were screaming at him, Mark, you know it's a goal. Look, and he's looking at the replay.
That is incredible.
You know it's a goal, and he said, yeah, I know it's a goal. I said,
what?
Well, tell the linesman, tell the referee, I'm not allowed, and he wasn't allowed.
That is amazing.
And you know when you have that feeling that at the end of the season, that could cost us.
Yeah, we all had that feeling, and we weren't there, but we didn't know that as well, because I mean, we obviously saw the TV pictures.
And I've worked in media with Mark Housey many times, and every time I see him, I told you it was a goal. You knew it was a goal, and he in the end, I've driven him mad.
He stops. He never sees you anymore.
He avoids me now.
That is brilliant. So there is a story in there regarding Mr. Arsene Wenger, where you got a little bit aggro with him. Would you like to?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. Again, you have to read the book.
I didn't see it.
Didn't see it. Yeah, it wasn't me, Your Honour. Okay, fair enough. So this wasn't actually to do with that, but the Arsenal 4-4 game. It was quite early on in Harry's reign. Just talk us through that.
That was Harry's first game.
What do you remember from that game?
Just the way we came back. It felt like a victory because it looked like, obviously, Harry came. And again, it was a situation where I was put in temporary charge. Harry came and sat next to me on the bench. And as I know, and as everybody knows with Harry, he can't sit still and he can't sit on the bench and not get involved. And we were up and we were at the team, and they came back brilliantly. But David Bentley, obviously, who played at Arsenal but was playing for us then, a real talent, scored an extraordinary goal, a wonderful, wonderful goal. And all of a sudden, you just felt that there was that release. Harry was in charge. The team was going to start. This was how the team was going to play.
Yeah.
We might let in 3, but we've always felt capable of scoring 4. That was a 4-4 draw. That was the start of what was to come.
Yeah. And so you talk about Harry Redknapp now. So obviously, with all the different managers that you worked with previously, as a player and as a coach, how does he differ from the others in terms of, obviously everyone knows him as a bit of a sort of wheeler dealer, a good man manager, but in terms of tactics, was he quite tactically astute? Were you
yes,
impressed
he
with what he did tactically?
I always say that Harry was a great believer. If he thought you were a player, and he used to say, you were a player, then regardless of everything that went on around you, good, bad or indifferent, Harry knew that if he gave you the opportunity to play football, that you could produce, and that's what he was, I think, so clever at.
Yeah, there's that. That's that classic interview when he was talking about Frank Lampard, and the journalist is talking about someone else, and then Harry's like, no, Frank Lampard is going to be like absolute class, like. Yeah. And he was like saying, "Are you sure? What about this other guy who's like turned into nothing?" He's like, "Yeah, he's."
And Rafa was an example of that when Rafa van der Vaart arrived, an extraordinary talent, a really, really good player. Not the athlete, and he knew that himself, but Harry handled him well, and he knew. And if you look at Rafa's record here at the football club, big games, he contributed. He made a goal or he scored a goal. He played a part. He might not play 70 minutes. He might play 55 minutes or an hour, but Harry got the best out of him, and he loved Harry. And
he loved Tottenham. He still does. He tweets about us every other day.
Time. He loved it. He really did. Yeah.
And we love you, Rafa, because he does watch the show. In terms of getting on the wrong side of Harry, there's a couple of incidents in the book. One where he has a go at David Bentley and Alan Hutton. And then there's another one which is scouting related. Were you suddenly given a scouting role, or was that part of your wider role within the club?
Part of the remit with obviously the coaching staff, which was Kevin Bond, Joe Jordan and myself. We'd look at opposition. Joe then would do obviously presentations for the team, having looked at 2 or 3 of their previous games. But in terms of the Champions League and qualifying for the knockout stage of the Champions League, as we did for the first time, Harry decided to send me to young boys in
Chief
Switzerland.
Chief Scout Clive Allen.
To assess the team, our opposition, and just tell him what they did and how they worked and how easy it was going to be. And there I was, the Saturday before we went there in the Champions League, a wet, snowy afternoon in Zurich, and what happens? They lose 1-0. I come back to tell Harry, absolutely no problem. we will cruise. We will cruise through. But I hasten to say that I did say this: as long as we do it right. As long as we do it right.
That's a bit of a vague statement, though. That's like, if we win, we're going to win. Well, yeah. Well,
but
I'm not sure if I'm having that.
Unfortunately, as you do in the Champions League, you go and train the night before. The pitch, it was a plastic pitch. You could see that there were, and Harry wasn't happy. He could sense that there was a number of players that one wasn't happy with the surface.
Yeah.
Two, it was new territory we were treading. So, what happened? We were goals behind early, and to which Harry turned to the dugout, and there I am. You told me we were going to win. You told me they were rubbish.
I bet he was saying worse than that.
He was. And all I could say was that we'd be okay. We've got a return leg at White Hart Lane. We'd be okay. We managed with, I think it was Younis Kabul and Basson, Sebastian Basson, who scored. We got beat, but we managed 2 away goals, but comfortably won at home, as I predicted.
What's he even moaning for?
As I predicted.
Love it. A couple of players that you do mention in the book that stood out to you within your time at Tottenham, Adel Tarab and Benoit Assirou-Koutou. Story about Benoit is quite funny. So he was quite a strange character. He was always quite an interesting character, wasn't he?
Yeah, football was his job. Alien to me. He wasn't passionate about it. It was his job. He was a fantastic professional, great athlete, good trainer, good footballer, but football didn't really interest him.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre, and people say, "What are you? How can he be?" But that was Benoit, and that was the way he was. He would give of his best every time he played. When he went across the white line, you knew he was there, and he was doing what he could, and he prepared and did everything right. When he come across the white line, no interest in it whatsoever.
Brilliant. So one young player who then did sign for the club is Mr. Gareth Bale. When he first signed, did you expect him to be anywhere near as good as he has gone on to be and achieve what he has done in terms of the club record transfer fees and obviously playing for one of the best clubs in the world? Did you see that in him when he came with his big ears and trying to play left back?
Not initially, but certainly there was reasons why that happened in terms of how he'd been at Southampton, how he'd played there. Whatever was happening with him at Southampton couldn't happen at Spurs. And again, going back to my own experience with Peter Shreves, he had to now step up. He now had to find consistency in his game. And I would always say he had to grow up. He was still a very young man. He was leaving home. There was lots of factors which affected Gareth at the start. But the one thing you did see, and it took a little while, but there were days and there was moments in training where the senior players, the established players, looked and saw him do things, and they was like, the questions were, did he really just do that? Or was he actually that quick? And he was.
He was incredibly quick.
There was little signs, I would say there was little signs, but it was how Gareth was going to be able to use that to become the player that we know. And as we know, he announced himself to the world in San Siro, and he backed it up with one of the best performances here at the old White Hart Lane against Inter on a night that I always say was the most spine-tingling atmosphere that I've ever experienced at White Hart Lane.
Taxi for Mycon, as you've written the book. Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. We followed it up with a victory at the Emirates, which is obviously another good place to go. And then Milan away. So I watched Milan away when I was in Thailand, and I was in a hostel, and it was about 5 or 6 in the morning. I was watching it on my laptop with my headphones in, and it was just incredible. So that was a really, really amazing journey, which obviously ended in Madrid, which I managed to go to. Was it frustrating to end it in the way that it did in Madrid? Obviously, with Crouchy getting sent off.
Yeah.
It felt.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to the game and it was like, it just felt it was such a wasted opportunity, and it was so unlike him as well. It was just so out of character.
I think we were the surprise team in the competition. Obviously, it was our first time. People weren't sure how to deal with us, and we got results. We were getting results. But when it comes, to the really right to the fine lines, Crouchy going, a man down, you cannot afford it. At that level of competition, you cannot afford for that to happen. And obviously the experience came to an end. But really just the start of the experience was something very special.
You mentioned potential signings whilst you were coaching at the club, and apparently we were interested in Gary Cahill and Carlos Tevez coming to the club. At the same time, we didn't get those, and we got Louis Zaha and Ryan Nelson, so quite a different calibre of player. How close were we to acquiring those players, do you know?
Well, I don't know what the finer details were, but certainly those players were discussed amongst the coaching staff. Harry, I know, spoke with Daniel about those situations, and obviously he always said with the Tevez one that should we get Tevez, we will qualify for the Champions League at the end of the season. Not able to do it, obviously a difficult one to take him out of Manchester City to bring him to back to London, because he played here for West Ham. So that's the nature of football.
Of course.
Sometimes you get it right and it all works out. Other times it just doesn't happen, and it's disappointing. So
one player that is obviously in the team at the moment and doing incredibly well is Harry Kane. You were there with his sort of formative years, as it were. What was he like? Because I think he's always, whenever he's spoken about in the press, everyone said he's like the consummate professional. Like he works so hard on the training pitch. Is that what you've experienced with him? And did you see maybe even like glimpses of yourself in him in terms of his sort of dedication and finishing, his clinical nature?
Yeah, he had a great attitude from day one. He walked in into the academy. He had this desire to improve himself, which he did at every chance he had, whether it was physicality, mentality, everything about him. He worked tirelessly, and he had this incredible knack of being in the right place at the right time to score goals. He improved his skills. He had confidence in his ability, and that was Harry Kane from a very, very early age. There were times when people were not sure, and understandably why. Went on loan, didn't set the world alight at clubs he went to, but he had this desire and he had this drive to get to where he wanted to go to. And I've nothing but admiration for him. Incredible goal scoring record consistently over so many years now.
Do you think he's going to break the records?
Yeah, I think he can.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he can. If anyone can, Harry can.
He said that before.
I have.
So we posted earlier on this week that we were having Clive on our show, and we asked you to give us some questions that you'd like to put to him. And so we have Comley24, who says, what was your favourite moment while playing for Spurs?
I'd have to say making my debut at Goodison Park and scoring twice in a opening day season victory. There's a few, because I can't just say one.
No, but I mean, there's
a hat-trick on the opening day of the season, 86-87 at Villa Park, and then I would have to say ultimately scoring in the FA Cup final.
They're all three pretty good moments. I'd like to have one of those. In fact, I'd just like to play football on a pitch in the Premier League. So yeah, I think you're doing very well on those. Current Spurs best player, in your opinion?
Harry Kane,
yeah,
because of everything that he's achieved. How he's got to the position he's got to, and he's a great goal scorer.
And he is going to break those records. Fingers crossed.
Hope not.
That was from. Oh, I forgot about your record. I was talking about the Premier record and the England record.
All of them. You break them all.
I think,
but not the club record.
Not the club record. Yeah. Okay. That was from Rohan J19, by the way. Sam Gardner. Sam Gardner has asked, will Harry Kane break the Spurs and or England goal scoring record, which we've already asked. Question, which is going to move on to another topic, why Spurs playing badly now. We'll come on to that topic in a minute. So what I really liked about the book, I did like all of the book, by the way, so
Thank
well
you.
done. It's very good. Well done, James Ollie. The beginning and the beginning of the book and the end of the book are all about the Legends Day, which was obviously an amazing occasion at White Hart Lane. Seeing off White Hart Lane in style with the rainbow that came up, it was amazing. But you were lucky enough to experience that with your family in terms of your dad and cousin were alongside you. I mean, obviously the fact you had the same surname, so you were out first as well, which is just crazy.
Because I was Clive.
I was going to say, so you were literally like the first one out, and then
Clive
it was
Paul Les.
and then it was Paul Les. That's just, oh, how amazing was that? Like,
It was the most unbelievable experience. It really was spine tingling to come out, obviously on the White Hart Lane pitch for the last time before it disappeared. All the memories that come with that, being there obviously with my father, speaking to him at the time, saying, you know, pitch is not bad, is it? And obviously, I don't think I would ever know the memories that he has had,
of course,
having played in the great double side. So yeah, I thought it was the most perfect send off for White Hart Lane.
It was incredible. And the rainbow, honestly, did like it was just.
You just couldn't.
That was mental.
Couldn't believe that. No, it was perfect. It really was.
Brilliant. So talking about the current team, obviously we've had the recent news this week of Pochettino's departure and Mourinho's appointment. Very, very quick. It almost sort of felt like the whole Martin Nolh Getafe situation in terms of like, it felt like it was a little bit too quick for me. I don't know how long they've been speaking beforehand, if they had at all, but I don't know. It felt, I mean, we've spoken about on our podcast already in terms of it's a very, very difficult situation, obviously, because we all love Poch. He's an incredible manager. He's got us to this point, but whether he was able to get us that next level or whether he was tactically astute enough to get us through those big games, because we're talking about like the semi-finals against Man United, against Chelsea, the quarter-final against Juve, and obviously the final against Liverpool, whether there was something missing there with that current crop. And I think now we're finding that contractual situations obviously have affected it, and so we're now in a different situation with Mourinho. What was your take on the sort of the week's events, as it were?
Well, it was quite incredible, the timing of it. I felt obviously, like all Spurs supporters, from the start of the season, the team haven't played in the manner that we know they're capable of. You have to. It always comes down to results at the end of it. You look at a whole calendar year where the results have not been what we would like. The most extraordinary Champions League run, and 2 games that I said, as long as I live, I'll never see football matches like. And I watch millions of football matches.
Incredible,
absolutely
totally
amazing. And for Poch to take us to the Champions League final was the most unbelievable feat. Really, it was.
Did it paper over the cracks though, potentially?
Possibly, but I think that he's moved the club forward. There's no doubt about that. I think he's a great guy. He has been fantastic for the football club. It is disappointing that he leaves. I've experienced it myself. Yeah. We finished 4th, and we were relieved of our duties.
When AVB came in?
When AVB came in to take over from Harry and the coaching staff that I work with. So I've experienced it. I know what it feels like. It's very difficult. And sometimes it's difficult to understand. But I think there's reasons for it. And I've alluded to those in that answer. But
were you expecting Mourinho to be the man?
I was, yes, because I was involved here for obviously the game before the first league game that was played here when Inter Milan came and played, the Legends game, and Jose was here. Jose was liking what he saw.
Oh, really?
He was enjoying the surroundings. He was very friendly with everybody. He was a very nice Mr. Mourinho.
Oh, really? Well, he does seem to have like changed his tune a little bit. Maybe it's like the time off has given him, I don't know, or he's found God. It seemed like a different Mourinho in the interviews that I've seen. He was up, but he knows how to play the media. But I almost felt like he was playing me. Like I was watching that interview, I was thinking, oh man, I'm already sold a little bit now, and I wasn't expecting it to be that quick. I'm like, damn, stop it now, like, you know.
He's very clever, but you cannot argue with his CV. He's
Absolutely.
a winner.
He's a winner. I think that's might be what some of these players need now, is a bit of like, I don't know, it just seemed like Poch had lost the dressing room towards the end, which is really sad. And I don't know if that's 100% the case, but I think when you have got players who are almost passengers because of their contractual situations, or whether they've had falling outs, you just don't know, because we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I'm sure you've got more of a clue or experience of that kind of thing, but it was just sad. It was a sad situation, I think. But I don't think any of us, looking back, like you said, on the results in this year, would have really been like, oh no, it's crazy, because we're 14th in the league with the players that we have. We haven't changed that much in terms of our structure.
Jose Mourinho wouldn't come to this football club if he didn't feel that he had a squad capable of being successful. All his teams have always had a good centre forward. He knows he's got the best. He's got the best centre forward, if not in Europe, in the world. So he feels he has a good chance. It's his biggest challenge. He will win with Spurs, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
That's what he has to do.
Do you think his ego's come down a notch or two? It seemed like a little bit. Or was he just being complimentary to us Spurs fans, so we like him, and then it's going to be all special one stuff next week? I don't know. Do you think that time off is like, I don't know, it feels...
He might have mellowed a little.
Yeah, I think so. I think he wanted to get back into football. Definitely. He was obviously doing Sky stuff, but I think it would have definitely given him a bit of a food for thought, and the opportunity came up. So I just wonder when. So maybe you think Levy was having a little word back in a Intergame. Interesting.
Who knows?
Who knows? Well, Clive, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and really, really appreciate it. Best of luck with the book. It is a very, very good read. I highly recommend it, and we definitely kept out a lot of the secrets in there, so do check it out, especially the Arsene Wenger one. It's a classic story.
No comment.
No comment again. Oh God, he's on.
I didn't see it.
That's his soundbite, exactly. But yeah, been an absolute pleasure, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck with the book, and best of luck with the rest of the career.
Great, thank you.
All the best.
Cheers.